tax consequences of buying and selling a business are some of the most interesting in the entire tax law. You look at the side of the buyer, you look at the side of the seller, and you see that there's different tax incentives with respect to the way the tax consequences operate. What you're going to see when you learn about buying or selling a business with respect to the buyer and seller, the way that we look at the transaction is, if you're selling a business, you look at the different assets themselves being sold. Not just one asset, the business itself, or one item, the asset itself, the business itself, but you're looking at all the different assets in terms of characterizing those and allocating out the purchase price over those amounts. So that creates an interesting incentive on both parties, because for the buyer, you're looking at the tax incentives of purchasing assets, how they're going to depreciate those assets and whatnot, and how they're going to be able to get benefit from what amounts are being allocated. The seller, you're looking at the gain or loss with respect to the different assets, and there's different incentives for different assets being higher or lower, because you're maximizing long-term capital gain versus section 1231 versus section 1245 versus ordinary gain, short-term capital gain, all these different things. So there's lots and lots of components. So it's important to focus on both the buyer and the seller and in terms of their strategies and the benefits that go to them and the burdens that go to them with respect to the parties. But there's one party that's a silent party we also have to consider, and that is the U.S. government or the state governments. Now, I'm wearing my American flag suit here with my American flag hat because I'm representing the federal government. Go USA! Go USA! They want their share of taxes. So that's always a party to consider. And there may be ways to structure transactions or to do certain things that actually can keep the government from getting a big chunk of taxes. So that's something to keep in mind when you're going through these materials. So just keep that in mind, different ways that you can keep the government from getting, in terms of legally, right? Not tax evasion, but tax avoidance. Legally, ways that the buyer and seller can come up with in terms of reducing or minimizing taxes that are going to be paid to the government authorities. So keep that in mind. Very, very interesting item when you're learning about buying and selling a business.